What's up, everyone? Molly and I recently had the chance to go to San Diego Comic-Con to cover Star Wars Outlaws, but while we were out there, we also had the chance to go to the Lucasfilm Publishing panel and interview some of the authors. This interview is with EK Johnston, author of the upcoming Qi'ra novel, Crimson Climb. I wanted to do a little intro, though, because there were some technical difficulties in the middle of it. Our camera just didn't want to cooperate. Fortunately, our audio recording is all fine, so that's there, but there are some hiccups in the video here or there, and that's why. But please enjoy this interview with EK Johnston. Hey everyone, welcome back to Star Wars Explained. We are at Comic-Con, and I am sitting here with EK Johnston, the writer of the Queen's trilogy of books.
Padme books.
The Padme books,
yeah.
also the Ahsoka novel, and the upcoming novel Crimson Climb, all about Qi'ra. So I have some questions about that for you today, and maybe some of your other Star Wars projects if we have time.
Okay.
But Solo: A Star Wars Story gave us a really interesting jumping off point for you. We had this 3-year gap where Qi'ra was not with Han, and she, I would say, is a much darker character in the Star Wars universe than you have usually written when compared to Ahsoka or Padme or the Handmaidens. So what was that like to explore a different moral side of Star Wars?
I mean, honestly, it was pretty fun. The pitch was always to write her from the time the glass came down between her and Han at the spaceport until about 10 seconds before she meets Darth Maul for the first time. And that, as far as we were able to figure out in the timeline, takes about 18 months. So there's still some time left before she meets up with Han again for her to, I don't know, I'll write a pitch for that maybe. But the way that she kind of moves through that, bad things happen immediately with Lady Proxima. Bad things happen when she leaves Lady Proxima, and then she ends up with Dryden Voss, and that's also a bad thing. So she doesn't do much in terms of personal growth, but she is a survivor. And that, I think, is what sets her apart the most from my other characters, is that they have been, people who do the right thing or the good thing or the kind thing. And Kira's like, I'm getting out of this alive and I don't care about the rest of you. And that's what drives her forward. It's her primary motivation.
You were asked to describe the novel in one word in the panel. I believe the word you chose was murder.
Yes, there's quite a bit of murder in this book. And that might be it is murder, but it's more the people that Kira's willing to let die if it means she doesn't have to. So she only straight up murders maybe 3 or 4 people. Everyone else dies because they're not her. And I think that was really important to the character development as well.
And another thing you said in the panel that I thought was very interesting was you took some inspiration from Charles Soule and his comic trilogy surrounding Qi'ra. There was a line where she is talking to Leia and says, "You inspire, I manipulate." So what was it like to use the comics, Ray Carson's Most Wanted, Mur Lafferty's Solo adaptation, all of these different sources to help inspire your story?
That's always my favorite part. I love the teamwork part. And the one book that I also used was Daniel Jose Older's Phase 1 YA for High Republic, because so much of it takes place on Corellia.
Right. And Lady Proxima is in
it. So, and I remember reading the book, and there were grindelids the whole way through, and I was like, oh yeah, these are Lady Proxima's people, all that kind of stuff. And as soon as that one introduced herself and she said her name was Proxima, I was like, I have to go change the pitch, because if she's here for this, then that means she's really old and she's been through some stuff. And so I got to kind of write all that into it as well. And sort of take the stuff that Daniel had written about grindelids and adopt it into, because it's the same grindelid. I'm really impressed with myself that I remembered the species name just now. I just want to say that.
You're
I never
it.
remember the species name. And so that was really fun to sort of do the teamwork thing. And Mur has, it's not in the movie, but the restraining bolt conversation in the book between L3 and Qi'ra is one of the best pieces of Star Wars anything I've ever seen or read. And the way that it sort of impacts both of their characters, but for me, Qi'ra, was outstanding. And to kind of have all of the stuff to draw from and how different she is from everyone. A lot of people would be like, oh, she's Leia's opposite. And I'm like, not really. She's definitely Leia's foil, but I don't know if she's Leia's opposite. Because the thing they have in common is Han Solo, but Han Solo is very different people for both of them. So it's not quite a straight line, which I liked a lot. So I was glad that they had those scenes together, where we could kind of see that it's not just Han having to choose
I really like what you said about the grindelids. I mean, that's something that I hadn't even considered, but obviously Proxima would be in this. And Midnight Horizon was this book that transformed how I view the species
Yep.
because when I saw Solo, like I was like, oh, Proxima, it's kind of a fun, different take on a Jabba-style
Yep.
crime boss, kind of goofy, but then they are
They're
horrifying.
terrible. They're so
So are we going to see a little more of that side of what they're like?
Yeah, one of my favorite things about writing them and the way that Qi'ra kind of sees the world is that we're used to thinking things are coming from above, they're coming from in front, they're coming from behind. On Corellia, they come up from below, and they come up from below all the time. And those are the things that eat you. Like, they don't just kill you, they eat you. And the fact that she has this, like, extra dimension of threat analysis, even before she gets into space, where things obviously come at you from every direction, really sort of shapes her thinking and her analysis of a situation and her ability to get out of it, because she's already thinking of all of the directions, which most people wouldn't do.
I'm really interested to dive into the criminal syndicate side of things, which, I mean, the White Worms would be kind of a minor one,
Yeah.
but Crimson Dawn is one of the major syndicates. Are we going to get a look at kind of what makes a criminal syndicate tick? Because right now it's a lot of just general, they do bad
They do
things.
bad things. A little bit. I did get to write a sort of meeting, like a meetup with a bunch of the syndicates in the same room. It's a setup, obviously, so everyone dies, but like many people die. Almost all of them die. Several of them die. And you get like all of these bits and pieces. And the thing that I enjoyed was that the heads all know who Darth Maul is, but the people a couple levels down do not. So Qi'ra knows there is this like puppeteer figure, and a lot of the stuff in the book is her slowly figuring out more and more about him, without meeting him and without actually being told anything about him. Just aware that it's like going to be really important to her someday that she figure this out, so that she can like not die.
I love that structure for her because it's kind of the structure the audience had in Solo.
Yeah.
There are little teases that we might know who this is,
Yeah.
and the slow reveal of it, that's very fun. You kind of touched on this just now, but how would you describe the state of the 5 major syndicates in this book? Because when we look at them in Crimson or in Qi'ra's trilogy of comics, it's insanely chaotic because of Qi'ra. So is it similar, or is it a little more peaceful at this point?
They are quite controlled at this point. Darth Maul's iron fist, basically keeping them all together, and he's not letting them stray too far outside the lines. Within the actual organizations, it's always a little bit chaotic, but because Voss has this person to back him up, he's very inspired to make sure that his own house is in order, because nobody wants to give a bad status update or have something get back to Darth Maul and be like, maybe we should replace you. So writing that, in terms of how the sort of politics within Crimson Dawn work, because obviously they're criminals and they're ambitious criminals, and some of them want further up the ladder, and then there's murder. So it was good to write that as well. It gave me sort of a very very straightforward motivation for Qi'ra. So there's the very straightforward motivation, which is stay alive, and then there's the framework, which is like she realizes she's gonna have to take over this organization if she wants to remain alive, and that's basically her whole thing in the comics, which is basically like she's basically gonna have to take over the galaxy if she wants to stay alive. And that's her, like, again, not like the best motivation, but it's working for her.
Outside of Crimson Climb, I'd love to talk to you a bit about just the teamwork side of things, because you have helped collaborate with Mike Chen writing Brotherhood. What was that process like, as well as maybe Greg Pak in the Darth Vader comics, because Sabe and the Handmaidens have been very heavily involved lately.
Yeah, so I didn't find out that Greg Pak had put the Handmaidens in the comic book until the day after the first issue came out, and I got like 40 billion like messages. And then I emailed Jen and I was like, can I have the comics, please? And so I read the run, and then I was writing Queen's Peril. So Greg had his first run, and then I wrote Queen's Peril, and then Greg had his second run, and then I wrote Queen's Hope. And so when he was doing his second run and I was putting Queen's Hope together, we had a chat about like where Sabe was going to be and how she was going to know it was Anakin and like all that kind of stuff, to sort of get all of the pieces together, which was really fun as well.
Cool. And with Brotherhood, it sounds like you and Mike Chin kind of worked on. He said that he asked you for wardrobe advice a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I did the dress descriptions because he was like, I don't think I can do this, and I was like, it's really not that hard, but okay. And then I made some dresses for him and put them in the book. So, yeah,
That's great. Well, I have one more question for you, and it's someone that I ask, or it's a question I ask everyone, but I think I started doing it after we talked at DragonCon years ago. I love knowing what people's favorite like background or side characters in Star Wars are. So, who is yours? Mine is Big Starklighter, for an example of just a lesser celebrated character.
Yeah, I think this answer changes like every time
Sure.
something happens, but right now it's probably still Enfys Nest.
It's a great one.
I would say that even if it wasn't a solo movie that I was like writing a book about, but I love that reveal so much. I love Erin Kellyman so much. I love the character so much. Like I love everything about it. And I hope someday she's not a side character.
Yeah.
But I love that I love the way Paul Bettany says Enfys Nest throughout the movie, and then it's a 16-year-old girl. Like I live for that kind of stuff, so it was awesome.
It would be interesting if she were to show up in another book about
it would
Crimson
be
Dawn.
fantastic. I'm just saying,
I
I would be down for that.
Not going to press you on that, but well, thank you.
I did come the closest in this book to actually getting to include her, which I view as a great personal victory because I've been trying since like, whenever the solo movie came out.
Well, thank you for taking some time to talk to us. If there's anything else you've got coming out that you'd like to plug, or where can people follow you online, social media?
I am on Instagram at EK_Johnston and occasionally on Twitter with the same handle.
Great. Well, thank you for taking some
you
time
very
out of
much.
your busy schedule, and have a great rest of your con.
Thank you.